Okay, so today we are going to do a comprehensive JavaScript review. So any questions, anything at all that you have on JavaScript, you are going to ask today because I want it just to be good in your minds. And then other than that, we're going to learn arrays, and we have an image carousel lab to work on. So today's learning objectives are going to be able to define arrays. We're going to practice using indexes to access different array elements. And we are going to use jQuery to make an image carousel. So this carousel is going to be pretty basic. It's going to be like you click on buttons to like switch pictures. We'll see that later. Okay. So time for your comprehensive review. So what is jQuery? Who wants to sum up what jQuery is? Yeah, pretty much. So jQuery is a JavaScript library, and all this means is it's a bunch of methods or functions that are made to make things easier for you to do. So, for example, I'm a developer, Subi's a developer, and we were writing JavaScript over and over again to do pretty much the same thing. So, like, I would write JavaScript to make my animations like slide up just to be fancy. And Subi wanted the same thing, and so she wrote it all in plain JavaScript to do the same thing. So it's like, why should every developer keep writing the same thing over and over again when we can actually just compile it into one library that's just easy for everyone to use? Hence, that's where jQuery comes in. Good thing about jQuery is it's simple to use. It's cross-browser compatible, so it'll work the same in different browsers and you don't have to worry about it. And you can use CSS selectors in order to work with different elements on your page. So when you are using jQuery, you can either download jQuery or you can use a CDN. And a CDN is a content distribution network. And all that is, it's a website that'll host jQuery for you. For example, I always refer to Google. So if you do Google jQuery, this link right here has like a list of hosted libraries that they host on their servers. And you're going to just scroll down to jQuery. And they have different versions. And all you would have to do is just copy this link into your HTML. And you'll have access to jQuery. So what's the difference if I do this and if I download jQuery and link it that way? Yeah, so if you do download it yourself, then you're going to have to like host it on your own server. Also, the biggest difference is like if you ever wanted to work online or like offline on your website, then because if you use like the Google hosted version, then if you're offline, you're not going to be able to access it from your laptop if you're not working with wireless. So for that purpose, you might want to just download a copy of jQuery just to have if you ever wanted to, do work on a plane, or if you're camping and you want to be nerdy for whatever reason, you have that. Okay, so once you have that, then you're going to want to move it to your JavaScript folder. And remember, now we want to like stay organized with our code. So we're going to have a JavaScript folder and a folder for our CSS. So once we move it in there, now we're going to want to link it up. So it's important, remember, to link jQuery up before you link up your main JavaScript file. Why is that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it needs to know like what jQuery is in order for you to use it. Because otherwise it's going to be confused as to like what the dollar sign means. So finally, when you're using jQuery, the first thing you have to do is first pick an element that you want to work with. So that's where this selector comes in. So in order to select something, you need this dollar sign, which literally means jQuery. And you need the parentheses and quotes. And inside the quotes, you're just going to use CSS selectors in order to pick whatever you want to work with. So right here, we're saying li, but if you wanted to, you can use classes, IDs, whatever you want. Whatever you're doing in CSS, it'll be the same thing. Okay, so this is just an example of how you can select things. So in CSS, it was dot class name. In jQuery, it would be the same thing, but wrapped in the dollar sign, parentheses, and quotes. And if you wanted to select multiple things, then it would be separated by a comma. So in this case, we're selecting the H1, H2, and H3 on our page.
In CSS, do you need the comma?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in CSS, if you want to like apply the same styling to different elements to your page, it would just be separated by a comma. Otherwise, without the comma, it would be a descendant selector. So in this case, we're looking for an A like directly within the li. And then you have to just tell it like what you want to do with whatever you selected. So that's where these methods come into play. So with different jQuery methods, sometimes you'll need a parameter to pass it. And what's a parameter again? Yeah, yeah. So it's like whatever information that this needs in order to work. So in this case, if we want to add class, it's probably going to need a class to know like what to add.
A class where? On the CSS file?
Mm-mm.
So what? Yeah, when I was looking through this after missing a class, as in class here, I didn't understand what this meant.
Gotcha. Okay. So when you do add class, it's literally going to look for whatever you selected. So in this case, it's an li, and it's going to go to your HTML, and you're going to see that it's going to do class, and then whatever class you specify.
Okay.
So
it's going to go and add something to the HTML.
Yeah.
But it's only if you need a class, right?
Yeah.
Like create it into a class.
Yeah, yeah. So.
And that class is in your CSS somewhere, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's a good point. So whatever class that you would want to add, it should already be in your CSS file.
Right.
Otherwise, there is a .css method that you can use. So if you wanted to, you can do $sign li, and then instead of adding a class, you can directly add whatever CSS you want. So for that, it would be like whatever property name that you want to add, and then the value that you want it to be. Now, do you guys remember like why we would rather do the add class versus directly adding CSS?
You want presentation to be in your CSS.
Exactly. You want to keep those separated. So you want whatever styling to your website to be already in your CSS versus do it in JavaScript.
So when you said it actually goes to your HTML and adds a class, but we're saying that your class would already been in CSS, and I would maybe use this when like someone focuses on a form field, and I want the form field to look different while they're focusing on it. So the HTML isn't going to change. It's just going to be, or the piece of HTML can have multiple classes, which is what you have to specify in
So,
I guess in the form field example, like what would your LI look like in HTML?
so in the form, so let's, for example, say I had something that when you click on it, I want the user to be prompted to something, like that this is what they clicked on. So let's just add something here. Actually, I'm going to go to the starter code because I have everything easier that way. Okay. So here, I'm just going to add a paragraph. And then let's go to my main.js. So I'm going to add a click function to this paragraph. So I'm going to say on click function. And then I'm going to say, like, when the user clicks on this paragraph, I want to change the color of this paragraph to blue. I don't know. So I'm going to break my advice just for this one case. And imagine that I'm doing add class here. Actually, no, let's just use add class because why not? So I'm going to say, okay. So when they click on it, I'm going to add this class to my paragraph, blue. So what do I write in here in order to? Cool. So it'll just be cool. So why is that? Why is it cool and not dot cool? Exactly. So because this is going to be added to our HTML, in our HTML, we don't write class is equal to dot and then whatever the class name is, right? That's going to be for CSS. So let's open this up. I'm going to open up my DevTools. So I have this paragraph. And when I click on it, you see what it did? It added, sorry, it's like all the way here. It added a class cool using JavaScript.
Unlike something where you might style the class in your HTML, so like class cool. You use JavaScript and CSS to keep your HTML without all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And like this is just to make your website interactive, right? So like it's just so that when the user does something, you can do something cool to it. All right. So that you can do different things to your website using JavaScript. So first of all, you can traverse the DOM, which means like you can go through your HTML in JavaScript. For example, these are just some methods that you can use. So find, that's going to find like whatever elements you're looking for within whatever you're selecting. So for example, if you have like a bunch of links in your H1, then you can do find H1 and then find A, and then this will get all of the A tags that you have in your H1. one. Parent, that's going to select like the parent of whatever you're selecting. So in this case, it's going to look for box 1, and then it's going to go out one level in your HTML and get that parent that it's in. And siblings, that's going to get whatever's like next to it. So in this case, we are looking for the siblings of paragraph with the class importance. So one thing to note, like some methods take in parameters, some methods like need parameters in order to work, but sometimes like it's just optional. So in this case, like this probably would be optional. You don't have to give it like this dot important. That's just like if you wanted to select siblings only with that important class. But otherwise, you could just like leave that empty and it'll just get all of the siblings. Another thing you can do is you can actually get content from your HTML. So these are just some methods that you can use. So .html, if you leave this blank, then it's going to get whatever you have already inside of your H1. If you don't leave it blank, and if you put like a string in there, then it's going to replace the HTML content with whatever you have there. This attribute method, that's going to be a method so that you can change the attributes of whatever HTML tag that you want. So in this case, we're working with the image tag, and we're working with the source attribute. But this could be like whatever attribute you want, essentially. So for example, if you wanted to change an A tag, and if you wanted to change where it links to, you can do that. So it just needs a source, like it just needs an attribute to work with, and it needs whatever information that you want to change.
We had like we had 3 buttons, like we wanted to do some sort of like gallery thing.
Mm-hmm.
You do like dot on click, and then use that attribute. You chains together.
Yeah, so what we're going to be working on today is exactly that. It's going to be an image carousel. So it's going to be like a picture in the middle and then 2 buttons, and depending on like what button you click, it's going to take you like forward a picture or like back a picture, essentially. And for that, you're going to need this. Otherwise, you can change your CSS, you can add class, remove class, or toggle class. So toggle class, the way that works is if it already has this class, then it's going to remove it. And if it doesn't have it, then it's going to add it. So that's what like the toggling comes in. Does that make sense? I'll just show you guys just because why not? So I'm going to change this to toggle class. Okay. So you see how now it's like toggling it? So now whenever I click it, it turns it to blue, or it takes it off, and it'll be black again. Okay. You can do effects and animation with JavaScript also, and these are just some simple ones that you can do. So there's show, there's hide, fade in, fade out, slide up, slide down, slide toggle, and slide toggle, that's pretty much going to work the same. So if it's already down, then it's going to slide it up. Otherwise, if it's already up, then it's going to slide it down. And I strongly suggest like you look through the jQuery documentation just so you like have an idea of like what you can do with these. But right here, you see how like they have parameters within them. They don't need parameters. This is just if you want to like make it more customized to your needs. So for example, right here we're passing at 300, which is 300 milliseconds. Or you could pass it a string, and you can pass it like fast, slow, or normal. But otherwise, like you could just leave it blank, and it'll just use the default.
They have multiple things in there.
Well, it depends on what method you're trying to use. So if we go to the jQuery documentation, then it'll give you like an idea of like what you can do with it, what information you can pass. So let's just go to, let's see, Faden. So right here, it tells you like whenever you see like these brackets, those are optional parameters. So it tells you what you can pass in. So duration, that's going to be a number or a string. Easing, that's going to be a string. Complete, that's going to be like once the animation is complete, then you can tell it like what you want it to do next. And it'll give you like examples of how to use it. So right here they're passing it in slow. And so now it fades in a little slower. So any questions with this? Okay. So finally, you have these jQuery events that you can do. And an event is like whenever something happens to like your website or your computer, you can actually work with that. So these are just different options that you can pass it. And we're going to use the on method for all of these. And the only thing that you're going to change is here. So this is going to be whatever event that you want to work with. So far, I mean, we've used like the click. For the cash register, we might have used submit. Otherwise, like if you wanted to like do something when they resize the browser, then you would just put resize there. If you wanted to do something on scroll, you would put scroll there. And it basically works the same way. So you just put whatever event you want to work with, and then you just have to tell it like what you want it to do once that event occurs. So let's go ahead and do the jQuery practice in today's JavaScript drills. And for the JavaScript drills, I think I'm going to have you guys work with a partner. Because especially for the calculator, I'm going to expect you guys to pseudocode things. Okay, so you guys want to work together.
We're doing the jQuery practice.
Yeah, and the instructions are just here. And I want you guys to use whatever jQuery methods you can in order to do this.
Are we making these changes in line in the HTML file? Or in the
Mm-mm.
JS file?
JS. I mean, for the bonus, you're going to have to make a form if you wanted to do the bonus.
Is there a JS file for us to start with, or should we create one?
Yeah, there should be one, the main.js right here. But you're going to have to link jQuery and you're going to have to link main.js. It's going to be practice for that too. unfortunately, I'm not always gonna be here to help. So you guys are gonna practice today.
It's fine.
It works, it works.
So it goes right in the middle of the math. And then this type of source equals quotations.
Yeah, so you guys are gonna have to first link jQuery and link JS theory.
Oh, it needs to go. Okay, yeah.
So the purpose of the bonus is to like practice conditionals, like conditional logic. You shouldn't need like validation.
Okay.
So what? This is fun, right? I'm not getting strong at this, so we might hear different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try it 3 times, you can't do it.
Yeah, so you want to exit on the value. There you go. Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you. All right, let's go over everything together. Okay. So, first things first, so I linked up my style sheet, but I also want to link jQuery and JavaScript. How would I do that? Where do I want to do it, first of all? Yeah, so why is that? Yeah, so I want all my content to load first. That way I actually have my content to work with. So now I'm at the bottom. What do I want to link up first at the top? Yep. So I'm going to have this script tag. And now what am I going to write? To link up jQuery. Mm-hmm. Yep. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but for my main.js file. So I'm going to say js / main.js. Cool. So now the first thing I want to do is change this to say winter is here. So what do I need to select in my jQuery and in my JavaScript file? Yep. So h1, and then what method do I want to use if I wanted to change what it said? And then I'm going to say winter is here. So now I'll refresh the page. It changed it to winter is here. Very nice. So now I want to give this a blue background color. How would I do that in jQuery? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So now I.
Could you do rule after rule after rule like that? Could you do like textile, bold, or whatever the property is in every, you know what I mean? Do you have to select it again to do something else, or could you just keep making adjustments in that one .css?
So I think you can do this and pass it in.
I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you can do this and then pass it like different values. Let me see. No, that didn't work. There, that works. Okay, yeah, so you can. So if you wanted to pass it multiple values, you would have to give it this like brackets. And this works kind of like this one data type called a hash. And all a hash is it's kind of like a list of properties and values. So I could keep going. So this is a property and this is a value, right? So then I could do a comma, and I could say color, and then white. And it'll do that. So you see how it's kind of like a list of these things? So that's all a hash is. But we're not going to learn that too much in this class. So in this case, I'm just going to keep it to background color, blue.
Could you add 2 classes at once?
Yeah. Okay. So now what do we want to do? We want to give the div the class north. So how would I do that? Yeah, so I could select the div and then do add class. And then I'm just going to do the north. Ta-da.
So how did it inherit that silent? Oh, you already did that.
Yeah. I went ahead and I did it already in my CSS. Okay, so now I want to remove the white walker from the page when the user clicks on it. So this is my ugly white walker. So what do I need to type? So walker, and then, yeah. And then, so I'm doing that on click. What do I need to type in next? Function. Parentheses, brackets, semicolon at the end of it. And now I can tell it what to do. What do I want it to do? Yeah. And actually, I forgot about that. Okay. So, yeah. So let's see. And then I'm gonna want to, I could do hide on it. Nope. Exactly. Aw, but that's not working either. Why aren't you working?
Oh, it's all lowercase.
That's why then. Hello, Adriana. Oh, there it is. Capitalization matters, guys. Okay. Thank you, Jeremiah. Okay. So now for the bonus. So I'm going to want to make a form that asks who is the coolest character, where if they say Daenerys, then it says something. I forgot what. But here's my form. Right now I can type into it and it'll do nothing. So I actually want it to do something. How would I do that? Yeah, so I got my form right here. Yeah, I can do button. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, actually, I don't know if we're gonna have time today, but I'm gonna put up the solutions for the cash register using submit and the click. Okay,
Submit
with
connector,
comments.
submit connector.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna do function, parentheses, brackets, and then what do I want to do in here?
Want to select information.
So if I want to work with my form, how would I do that?
$sign form.
So I actually want to, so let's do a photo right now. So I already have like my first step, right? Oops. So my first step is going to be to, when the user clicks on button, do something. So when they click on that, we're going to do something. And what's probably going to be the first thing that we want to do?
You want to see what their value would be.
So I'm going to see, well, get user input. And then what?
Compare to
And then
Send an alert.
so even before that, so when we compare it, what are we comparing? And like what are the cases, the different scenarios? Exactly. So if it matches, then say they were right. And then 5, if it doesn't match, say wrong. Okay, so now let's actually translate this to actual code. So I have my click function already. Now I want to get my user input. So how would I get my user input from my form? What would I need to select?
oh, can you scroll down on your input?
Exactly. Yep. So I'm going to grab onto my input. And then how do I get the value? Yeah, dot val. So just to see that this is working, I'm going to console.log this value. Okay, so when I hit submit, it printed out hello in here. So I was getting the value. So now I'm actually going to assign it to a variable just to hold on to that information. So I'm just going to set it to variable input equals. So now I have this variable I can work with that's going to hold on to this input value, so whatever the user typed in. So now I'm going to want to compare it. So how am I going to do that? So how would I do that? How would I compare it? Yeah, so how do I write this if statement? So if So what do I need? Yep. And then yeah, so if input equals equals equals. Yep, so generis. And then so in this case, just because I don't want like to have to keep clicking on my website, I'm going to I'm just going to change my paragraph HTML to you're right.
Will it change that paragraph to make a format as character? The paragraph will affect.
Oh, let's see. Nope, because there's multiple paragraphs, so I'm just going to give this an ID. Coolest character. Okay. You are right. Okay, so now, what's my next case? Yep. So this is going to be my catch-all. So if this condition isn't met, then I'm just going to have this else statement just to do something else for like any other scenario. So I'm just going to do, again, .html, you are wrong. All right, so let's see if this works. So it changed it to wrong. Otherwise, if I do generis, then it changes to you are right. It did it really quickly. You saw that? Yeah. So the reason why is because we are using this button. So when the way buttons work, it's like it's a little tricky because like it literally just works when like you on that click. So I'll talk about this another time, but like if I change this to key and then ID equals button, and I do P, and I do button. Wait, did I change it? Oh, no, I didn't. There we go. Okay. So if I do this and I hit submit, now it like actually stays. So the reason why is because like when you're working with buttons, you have to do something weird in JavaScript so that like it disables that from happening, where it just works for that like click when the user actually clicks on the button. And I will show you guys that next week. But generis, there it is. Yeah, so that's one way you can do it.
You just did something to change this
Huh?
to make it so that it didn't flash. What was it that you did?
So I just changed it to a paragraph.
Oh,
But if you do exactly.
you could have an image sitting there and have it be hidden, like it's a check mark image, have it be hidden until they type in something that's correct and then show it.
Yeah. So another way you can fix it is if you type in type button. And then that'll disable that from happening. Yeah. So how was this? We're working through this. Okay. Good.
When that top line when you do their input, how do you, so you're saying you're introducing this variable called the input,
Mhm.
and you're saying to, and you select it and you want to validate it.
So in this case, I'm just instead of like doing this where I mean I could easily do this and change input for that, but it's a little unclear at this point, right? So I'm actually going to want to assign it to a variable just to hold on to that information.
Just so that you don't have to write out the whole second part.
Mhm. Exactly. So now I could use this input like throughout my code, like in this function, if I wanted to. So if I wanted to do like even more scenarios, then I would have like this input to work with instead of having to keep writing this line of code over and over again. So if I had an else if statement saying like if the input is Syrian, I think I'm spelling it right. I don't know. Then I could do something else. And it looks a lot cleaner only because like I'm not having this all throughout my code.
So that's like the top statement just defines the variable.
Exactly. That's all it's doing. It's just holding on to that bit of information. All right.
The bit of information being what is typed in there because that's what the dot val refers to.
Yeah, exactly. So let's keep going with our review. So variables, they just hold on to information that you want to work with. So you can either use it to get rid of like that line of code that you might be typing over and over again. You can hold on to whatever value and then just use like that short variable name throughout your code. Otherwise, like if it's like something super unclear, then you might want to like just define it in a variable with like a clear name. So when you're making variables, you declare it. You can either declare it like at the top and then assign it a value later in your code, which is what we're doing here. So we're saying var age, and we're not assigning it a value yet, but later on we're saying age is equal to 29. So you can do that, or you can do it all in one line. So here I'm declaring it, and then I'm assigning it the 29 as a value. And don't forget, you need a semicolon at the end of each step. So you can store different data types in variables. So when we're talking about data types, you have these three main data types that we've learned so far. So strings, that's going to be words and characters, and it's going to be wrapped in quotes. So it doesn't matter if it's single quotes or double quotes, as long as you're consistent. So here I'm starting with double quotes, so I'm ending in double quotes. And if you were to use single quotes, it would be start with single quotes, end with single quotes. And then you have your numbers. So this is another data type. So numbers, they can be positive, they can be negative, they can be decimal. So when they are decimals, what are those called? Floats. Yes. And what's whole number? Yeah, integer. So integer, float. Booleans, that's just true or false. Okay. When we are working with JavaScript, most often you are going to have to work with like logic. So you have these like comparison operators available to you. So you can do greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to. And when you're comparing things, it's going to evaluate to a Boolean. So it's either going to be true or it's going to be false. One important thing to remember is equal sign, that's you assigning a value to something, versus these are comparisons. So you have your triple equals and your double equals. And what's the difference again between the two? So which one's going to check for data type? So this is going to check to see if it's the same data type also. This isn't. So again, really quick example. If I do var x is equal to 5, and then if I do var y is equal to 5, if I do console.log x is equal to y, let's see what that gives me. Damn it, I closed it. Okay, so open this in Finder. So it gives me true. So even though this is a string 5 and this is a number 5, it's going to give me true. Unless I do triple equals, then it's going to give me false because it's not the same data type. It's always safer to use triple equals. That way you catch like any possible bugs in your code. But it's just important that you know the difference between the two. Okay, so we just had a little bit of practice with this earlier, but you can write if else statements in JavaScript. So for that, you would need to do if, and then in parentheses, write whatever condition you want to evaluate. And then in the brackets, that's what's going to run if this is true. And then if you wanted to, you can keep adding to your conditional logic and add an else if statement. And then if this is true, then it's going to run this. So in this case, we're saying like if A answer is equal to 38, do this. Otherwise, like if it's not, then it's going to keep going in your code. So if this is false, then it's going to keep going. Look at the else if, and it's going to check to see if the answer is equal to 30. And if it is, it's going to do this. And then else, that's going to be your catch-all. So that's going to be like any other scenario. So you can have like a bunch of else if statements if you wanted to. And you can also just like get rid of the else if you wanted to. This is just optional. So if you wanted to check like multiple conditions, then you would use these logical operators. So this is and this is or, and this is not. So here we are using and. So we're saying if name is equal to GA and password is equal to yellow pencil, then it's going to do whatever we say here. So with this case, because we're using and, this has to be true and this has to be true. If we used or instead, then only one of them has to be true. And it doesn't matter which one.
So would this be used for like checking the password in an email?
Yeah. So you can use this to check a number of different things. So you can check like username, you can check passwords, you can check to see like if they're older than 21, if you're selling alcohol, whatever.
How would you not actually check does it equal GA as in the string, but does it equal something in our database, right? Does it equal a valid username and the correct? Like obviously, UV writing is a much more complicated thing there.
Okay. So most oftentimes, you're going to be doing a lot of validations in your back end, actually, but like you might have some checks in the front end just to make it easier and like style it on your front end to see like if it's right or not. But otherwise, like a lot of the security is going to be on the back end just because like nothing on the front end is secure. you wanted to like check if it's valid in your backend, then you're actually going to have to make a request to your server and do a search for like that username. So in this case, I'm going to search for what is it? Name GA. So I'm going to retrieve a user with like name is equal to like GA. So name GA. And then once I get that user, then I'm going to be able to like compare their passwords. That's usually how it goes. Okay, so with forms, so far all we've learned is like type text. So when you're doing an input, you need to tell it like what type of input you're going to be taking. In this case, we're going to be text, and so it's going to bring up a little text box. Placeholder, that's whatever your text box is going to say. So we're going to learn other options later, but like it might be like a radio button or like a checkbox or whatever. And then button, you have like your submit button, and that's going to be a text button. Huh?
So I've been a little bit confused about how they go together. So you know if they're together because they're both in the form tag.
Exactly. Yeah. They're both in the form tag. Okay. So when we are working with like input data, we can use like this .val method in jQuery, and that's going to grab whatever the user typed in and give it to us in the form of a string. And if we wanted to like reset the form, then we can do .val and then put whatever value we want to give it. So any questions on that so far? Yeah.
When would you want to change the value in something that something that the user is putting in, right?
Yeah, so like you can change the value, so like if they type in something in their form and then if you want to like reset it, then you can like make it blank again. Otherwise like it'll still have like that text inside of it of whatever they previously typed in. So just for like user friendliness, you might just want to like reset it for them. Otherwise, some websites like if you have like a long form and then the user types something wrong, so then it'll like reset the form with whatever they typed previously, so that they don't have to retype everything again. Okay. So now let's go over functions. So the reason why we want to use functions is because we can like group certain steps together and make it into like some reusable code. So if you find yourself like redoing something over and over again, you might want to like put that process in a function. That way you can reuse that function instead of having to type that code over and over again. So when you're declaring a function, this is the blueprint that you want to follow. So you're going to want to do function, and you're going to give that function a name. And it's going to be a descriptive name, so something that makes sense. And you're going to need to follow camel case syntax. And then you have your parentheses. So it could be blank or it can take in parameters, which we'll review in a second. And then you're going to have your brackets. And so this is where your code block is going to go. So this is going to be like whatever steps that you want this function to execute. And then when we actually want to use a function, you have to call it. So even if you make a function, unless you call it, then it's not going to run. So in order to call it, you need to type out the name and then do parentheses. So if you're working with parameters, you need to name the parameters that it's expecting. This could be named whatever you want. So I think this is like important to take note of. So say we have a function that is going to find the area of a rectangle. And outside my code, I have like a variable width equals 10, and then I have a variable height is equal to 5. And now I'm going to make a function. I'm going to say function rect area. And now I'm going to take in parameters. So I don't have to say like width and height. I could just say param1, param2. So it doesn't matter what like I named it, as long as like it matches within this code block. So then I would say param1 times param2. And I would probably set this equal to like some variable area. And then when we actually call the function, we need to pass it the arguments. So we need to pass it the parameters to use. So in order to call this function, I would do.
So you just created a function, which is like the same as creating a variable. It's just setting up for the table.
Exactly. But now, in order to use it, I need to call it. So to call it, I'm going to do. I know this is hard to see, but it would be rect area. And then if I wanted to pass it these variables, then I would do width, and then I would pass it the height. So I would do width, comma, and then height. And then semicolon, and then that would actually use the function with those values. And remember, right now, where is my var area living? Is it a local or a global variable? Yeah, it's a local. So even though I'm doing this math in this function, I can't use it unless I return it. So if I wanted to actually have access to it, then I'm going to have to do return area. And then this is going to spit out whatever this math resulted. Does that make sense?
Spit it out, meaning when you call it, it'll be able to like.
Meaning now when I call it, I can do var area is equal to rect area or whatever. And now I can hold like that value.
Because even though you're outside of that function, because you did return area, now that variable is available everywhere else.
Yeah. Okay. So does that make a little more sense? The return.
Just to make sure, the return thing, that's all it's used for, right?
Yeah.
Is to make local variables accessible outside of that.
Mm-hmm. And you do that by setting a new variable to that function when you use it. And now you like can hold out whatever this resulted in your global scope.
We can ask the same question, returning like reiterate the same point, but so once I go return currency, then outside of that function, I can then call
No, so you're not going to be able to call currency. You're going to be able to use, in this case, amount in dollars. So that's going to be your global variable.
So return currency basically becomes amount in dollars.
Yeah, so in this case, let's take a look at it. So this function, convert to currency, is going to be taking an entry. And so we're saying entry to fixed 2. And what's that doing? Yeah, exactly. So this is going to make my entry into 2 decimal places. And then I'm going to assign it to this variable currency. So now my currency is like whatever they typed in with 2 decimal places. And then we're just going to add a dollar sign to it. So then once we're here, we're returning the dollar sign and then the current value of it. And here we have this var amount in dollars, and we're using this function with the entry. So now this amount in dollars is going to hold on to whatever this evaluated to. And the reason why we're doing this is because say we want to use this function over and over again, we can. And then we can just keep setting it to another variable of whatever amount that we want to hold on to.
Is the confusion here that you're using the bar area inside and outside, where we wouldn't want to use bar area if we want to name something else?
It doesn't matter because here it's a local variable, so it doesn't matter if I name it the same out here.
Okay.
But if I wanted to, I could make this more clear, and just, instead of just saying var area, I could say var, I don't know, rect area 1 or something.
And that's what was tripping me up, I guess, because I saw currency. That was the difference too.
So any other questions with this? Okay. So local variables versus global variables. Local variables are going to live inside of a function. You're not going to have access to them outside of that function, which is why you're going to want to return it and then set it to another variable outside. Global variables, that's going to be a variable that you have access to throughout your whole code. All right, so go ahead and let's work on the JavaScript calculator. So here I was nice and I linked it for you, so you don't have to worry about that. You're welcome. Okay, so let's go over this right now together. Right now we have these 2 input fields where if you type in a number and if you hit plus, this is the only part that I did for you, then it evaluates to my answer. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So what I want you guys to do is make it work for minus, divide, and times. So you're going to make a function for each of those things. And you guys could work in pairs if you want for this challenge. I just really want you guys to practice syntax here.
And I was like, yeah, no, you can just go. He is not over.
So you got permission, Subi?
Oh my god.
What's the premise with the command or the method to they get you like a certain amount of decimal points fixed
Oh,
to fixed?
so right now we just have an add function, but I want a function for the rest of those two multiply it. Exactly. Yeah.
Good, I got this
So, because of time restraints, I'm going to start doing it. So I have my add function, and now I want to make a function for minus, divide, and multiply, and whatever. So let's do that. So now let's do my minus function. What do I have to do? Yeah, so I'm going to want to select my minus ID. And then what? Yeah, so it'll be pretty much the same thing. So when the user clicks this minus button, I want it to run this code. So the first thing I want to do is I want to grab the user inputs. So right here, I'm calling this setNums function, right? And what is setNums doing for us? What does this function do? Exactly, yeah. So I'm grabbing whatever the user types in those form fields. So I'm grabbing num1 value and num2 value, and I'm going to do parse int. So when we do the .val, that's going to give us a string to work with, and we can't do math with strings. So we need to change it into a number somehow. So in this case, I'm changing it into an integer. I'm doing parse int. So now I'm setting num1 and num2 equal to numbers that the user typed in. So how do I call it in this function? Yep. Okay. So now I'm going to want to make a function to take care of subtraction for me. So how do I do that? Function subtract. Okay. And then total is equal to num1 minus num2. Okay. And then yeah, answer .html total. Okay, so now I have my subtract function. Now what do I want to do? Yep, exactly. So I'm going to call it right here. So now when I type in numbers, then now my subtraction works. So I'm going to do pretty much the same thing for my other functions. So I'm going to select my divide ID this time. I'm going to say on click function. Then I need to do setNums. And now I need to make my division function. So I could do function, divide, and then the total in this case would be num1 divided by num2. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, paste that in. So now let's see what happens. Oh, I need to call it in here. So if I do 4 divided by 3, it gives me this decimal. If I wanted to make it prettier, what would I do?
Keep fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to do that. I couldn't figure it out.
So I can do total dot to fixed, and then I'm just gonna do 3. And I'm gonna set total is equal to this new value. Oops. So now let's see what happens. So if I do 4, 3, divide, now it gives me just 3 digits.
That's just updating the variable.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just reassigning
Do you have to do that
total.
for each one, or is there a way to do it outside of? I guess there isn't because we're defining each function individually, but we probably want to figure that out, right? Do actually wins.
Yeah. I mean, if I wanted to, uh,
You just write that
then
one
I
time,
could,
all of them at the end.
well, in this case, like, I would have to probably put it still in each click function, only because, like, if I do put it outside, so if I put it like here, it's not gonna do anything for me because it's already gonna run before like anything happens. Okay. Finally, I'm gonna make my multiply function. And my total is equal to num1 times num2. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So any questions on this? How was it? Is it okay? Okay. Okay. There. Now that works.
Could you do like instead of doing those 4 different on clicks, could you do like a one set of like an if statement, if and else if, like instead of having 4 discrete functions, or would you still have to do that?
I mean, you can do it so that, let me see, how do I have it set up? So I haven't gone over this yet, but we will soon. If you do li dot on click function, and then just to show you guys what I could have used instead, I could do console dot log this this dot html, and let's see what this gives me. Oh, oops, wait, let me do. Okay. There, you see what it does? You see my console? So, just to give you guys like a brief summary, I could have used like this, and what this is it's referring to like whatever it is in this function. So in this case, when the user clicks on li, then I'm saying like whatever li that they clicked on, I'm going to get the HTML. So this is going to be the li that they clicked on. So what I could have done is I could have gotten the HTML and then do total is equal to num1, like after I parsed it, num1, and then if I do var, I don't know, logic. I think this would have worked. Let's see.
What is that second thing today?
Actually, no, this wouldn't work. I would have to do like a giant like if else statement comparing it. So let's just see. Yeah. Line 8.
What are you trying to do though?
So he was wondering like if there's like a different way to do this, and there is. So if I say if logic is equal to plus, then I could do that instead of having like a bunch of click functions. I could just do this and then just keep going. So like else if, and then do logic is equal to the subtract, and keep going that way. But I haven't taught you this yet. All right, so any questions on how, the way we did it? Okay. So let's move on to what we're actually learning today, which is arrays. I'm going to wait for Nia to come back. That way she doesn't miss anything. But did you guys have any other questions on what we learned so far? Okay, good. I know that was just a little at first.
Told like the dev team I worked like, oh yeah, I'm taking this random dev class, and like, oh, you don't know JavaScript, and I was like,
Yeah, honestly, okay, so you guys want to hear something really dumb? JavaScript was written in 10 days. Yeah, so like, it's like the most hated language on earth because like there are a lot of weird things about it. But unfortunately, like it won in like proud of the world. So you're just gonna have to use it. 10 days. That's crazy. I'm just gonna start. Okay, so arrays. So when we make a list, we usually start with like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Well, I want you guys to get like out of that mentality and now think of lists starting at 0. So here we have a list starting at 0, and this is pretty much what an array is. It's a list of values that you store. So you can store a list of values in a single variable, and it could be just different values of like different data types that you want. So you can hold numbers, strings, and other arrays if you wanted to in an array. And this is in case like you want to hang on to like multiple things that are kind of like related to each other. And because right now, our websites don't have back-end databases, if you wanted to, you can like add to arrays in order to kind of like pseudo store different things. But it'll only be temporary, so like as soon as like you refresh the page, then it all goes away. Just an FYI. So when you are working with arrays, you declare it like a variable. So you assign it, so you declare a variable, and now you can assign it like a list of objects. So an array is going to use those brackets and then whatever you want, you can put inside of it. And each item is going to be separated by a comma. So in order to go through an array and like be able to retrieve things, an array keeps track of its items using indexes. So the first thing in an array will have an index of 0. And then the second thing will be 1. And then the third, 2. And it'll keep going in that way. Just know that the first item is going to be index 0.
So when you chose that like that example for arrays,
Mm-hmm.
item 1, should that really like would it be more accurate to say that's item 0?
Exactly. Yep. So, like I said, you can store like different values of like different data types if you wanted to. And then just index through them that way. So in order to get things back out of an array, in order to like access those values that you're actually storing, then you would call on the index in this way. So here, in this case, we have this myArray variable, and it's holding this array. So in this case, we have 5 as 0, true as 1, 2 as 2, and then hello as 3. So in order to get true back, you need to call the name of your array, so myArray, and then in brackets put the index that you want. So 1 is going to return true, 0 is going to return 5, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
You use like variables or like declared variables in your array, so instead of like actually number 5, you could like something like a variable
So you can't declare variables in your array, but you can store.
yes,
like
you
here.
like you define a variable earlier on. You declare it earlier on in the code. You could say like the position 0 is that variable.
Yeah, you can do that. So when you're inserting new values, you can actually like add it this way. So myArray 1 and then hello, and it'll add it to that second index of the array. And if you wanted to update values, so in this case, 1 already exists. So if you do the name of the array and then whatever index that you want to rewrite, you can set it equal to something else, and then it'll change the value that that array is holding. So here we have this myArray variable, and at index 1 it says hello, but then we're resetting it here to goodbye. So then it would say goodbye instead.
And the top one is basically if this var array or var myArray, that variable you have there equals 65, and you close the brackets and a semicolon. You would write myArray 1 hello, and just add an index to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you wanted to, you can get like the length of an array also. So there's this dot length method. So in this case, we have this shapes array, and it has 3 items, so it's going to return 3. And if you wanted to get the last thing of an array, then you can do the name of the array dot length and then -1. So it's going to kind of like loop around the array and give you the last item. So -1 is going to be square. So any questions on this so far? Okay, so let's go to the arrays lab. Okay, let's declare a variable called groceries. So how would I do that? Then I'm going to set it equal to an array of strings. So I'm just going to copy this. And then how do I make an array? Now there's my array. So I'm going to add a fifth item to my array. So how would I do that? 1, 2, 3, 4.
So my array, yeah, so it could be the fourth position. So bar in brackets 4 equals.
And then I want to replace the second item in the array. And I want to set it equal to Brussels sprouts. So how do I do that? Yep. Now I want to add a sixth item to the array. Yep. And then set it equal to oranges. And now, ta-da, I have my little list here. The way it's supposed to look. Congrats. Oh, it was just in this runner code. So a few things that I'm going to teach you again today is this other method, jQuery push. So another way to add to an array is this dot push method in jQuery. And the way this works is it's going to add it to the end of the array. So if I wanted to, instead of doing this, then I could do, I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to do groceries dot push. And then give it the value that I want to push it. So apples. And oh, oops. It'll still work. So any questions with arrays? So dot push is going to push it at the end of the array.
Since we haven't added oranges yet, it'll just go and default that to the last position.
So it's going to add it after asparagus.
But if we cut that paste that line to after line 15, it would be after orange.
Oh, let's see. Okay. So I would probably just mess around with arrays, see what you can do. Do I want to do this? So if you guys want, I would recommend like practicing in arrays part 2 when you get the chance. But tonight's lab is this image carousel. So I just want to like walk through this with you before like you guys actually get started. So when you hit next and previous, you're gonna have to go to the next photo or the previous photo. So let's just talk through it right now. God, I have a lot open. Okay. So I'm going to open up the image carousel. That way we can talk through it. And let's pseudocode as a group. So I have, if I look in this folder, I have my images. And I see that it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're in order. So when I want to, what I probably want to do is like when I press the previous button or the next button, I'm going to want to somehow change whatever my link to my photo says. So let's just pseudocode like what we have to do in order to get this to work. What's the first thing that I'm probably going to want to do? So if we have a next and a previous button, exactly. So I need to make, well, let's first like, if the user clicks previous, then I'm going to do this code right here. So, so I'm going to want to do like a click function to my previous. So add click to previous. So when the user clicks on that, then what am I going to want to do? Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to want to go back and index in my array. So actually, what I want to do from the get-go is I'm probably going to want to make an array that holds these images, right? So how would I make an array? Var, and then I'm just going to say images, and then, and so I'm probably going to make it like image 1, and then, keep going this way. And actually, I'm going to do .jpeg, and I'll tell you why in a second. And actually, I'm going to go a step further and make this my route. So images, image 1. And we can always refactor this later, but I'm just going to get you guys started in this way. Are you? What do you mean? Like? Oh, no. There's not. So the reason why I want to do this is because in the future, what I'm probably going to want to do is use my jQuery adder method. Oops. So do you guys remember like this method where if it's like image and then I can do my attribute method and then I could pick the attribute that I want to change. So in this case it's going to be the source that I want to change. And then I'm going to want to change it to one of these depending on like what they click on. So it's going to be like images. And then if I do index 1 right now, let's see what happens. I'm just gonna run this code. Uh-oh, I did something wrong. Huh? Oh, hello. Wait a minute. No. Hold on. Where the heck is this picture? Oh, here it is. Images. Oh, because I didn't do .jpeg. Hello. Okay, so, ta-da. You see how the picture changed? So what you guys want to do is somehow, when the user like clicks on either previous or next, you're gonna want to change the index. So with our knowledge, what I'm probably gonna want to use is like this combination with like, I might make a var index in order to keep track of where I am in my array, right? So what happens if like I change this to index instead? Exactly. So it's going to be the first one.
So when you had it before, it just changed because that was you were just saying onload.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I want you guys to eventually do is like bind it to whatever they're clicking on. So if they're clicking on previous, then you're going to want to change like the index to subtract one from it, and so on and so forth. And if they click next, then you're going to want to add one to this index.
How do we do a repeat thing, like if you flat press it and then add it once, and then if you press it again, it adds it again?
Wait, a loopy thingy, so if you press it once.
Yeah.
The index, it has to go back to 0.
Oh, okay, so if you're all the way at the end, then how do you want to like reset it?
Yeah.
So I would probably do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if the index is 5, or like, I would probably do like some logic. So like if index is greater than equal to, no, is greater than 5, then I'm going to reset it to 0 and then do it that way. If you want to do like an infinite thing. So any questions on what you're working on today? I'm going to be around to help